Okay, everybody, you may be able to see me, but I can't see you yet. So this is that painful 20-second lag where we're kind of in the zone here. I think we're on. All right. Oh, do I have a little? Uh-oh. Hold on, Meg. I might have a little something going on here. Everybody, hold on. Little technical issue happening. Oh, perfect. Okay, I'm almost there, everybody. Do not go away. We got a little operator error going. Yes, we're good. That was stressful. All right, you just have to take over because I've had enough for the day.
Oh my God. Well,
hello, everybody. I am here with the fabulous Meg Cabot. Meg, let me just say right off the bat, you're a terrible person to introduce because I don't know where to start, okay?
Stop.
You are writing contemporary women's romance, which we're talk about today. You're also the queen of the teens and the tweens. You are a movie goddess. Your books have been made into series for Lifetime and for Disney. And of course, you are the creator of the fabulous Princess Mia.
Oh, it's tiring.
I know, it's so much. We're going to be talking about your book, no offense, but first I got to ask you, do you think, because you are a very prolific author, do you think you're one of these people who sort of loves to write or feels compelled to write? This is a question that always fascinates me.
Well, first of all, thank you for that amazing introduction.
Oh, I know it did.
I feel so honored to be here because I love your books, and I'm just reading your newest one, Dance Away With Me Now. It's amazing. So yeah, definitely I feel compelled to write. I actually use writing. I've been through therapy, so I found out all the truth about what I do, and I use writing as kind of therapy. It's what I turn to, and I always have since I was a little kid. It's what I turn to when I'm feeling stressed out and upset about something. I start writing, and I'll try to take my problems and turn them into a book. So and now my therapist is like, you have to stop doing that. You really need to, like, if you want to do that, write a journal, and then the other things, your fictional books, those are separate. So I now have a journal, and then but I've always kept a journal, and then I also have my fictional books. So I think
you should fire that
free advice. I know, free advice. You need to keep your fiction separate from your actual journal, and that's really helped. But yeah, that's what I do. And I think a lot of people who maybe have always worked out their problems some way.
Right.
That's what they've done. Like maybe they garden aggressively or they work out aggressively, but I've always written. So yeah, I feel compelled to write.
When you're writing, do you get the sense of taking your blood pressure down, or do you get the sense of anxiety at all when you write?
No, for me, it's very relaxing and I love it. And I mean, I do get frustrated. Certainly there's times when
writer does.
Yeah, I think that's part of the fun of it. It's like you're trying to solve a problem and you can't quite figure it out. And that's fun too. Although, now that I'm getting paid to do it, there's a deadline looming. That part's not so fun.
So you wrote when you were a kid too?
Yeah, I can't remember a time when I wasn't making up stories and I would illustrate them, and I would do it in school. And I kind of figured out like that I would even look at like what the other kids were writing, and I felt a little competitive when their story would get put on the wall at school and I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Oh, what did she? Oh, I see. She gave it a happy ending because my stories were always very dramatic. And I'd be like, instead of having them all die at the end, I should make them get married and stuff like that. Because those stories got more. I mean, how about you? Were you that way?
No.
No,
I didn't start writing. I never even wrote a short story. The first thing I wrote was a book. It was like, I still don't know. I mean, I can't say that I love writing because I whine so much when I'm writing, and it gives me a lot of anxiety. I can't say I'm compelled to write because I could easily take time off, but I love having written. I just love having written.
That is a great feeling. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Were you, oh, I know, I looked at your bio. You and I have something in common. We were both reluctant readers, slow readers as
Yeah.
humans. What was the,
Yeah.
tell me about your trauma and I'll tell you about mine.
My trauma was pretty easy. My parents were very adventurous and they took all of us kids when we were little out of school and moved to France for a year. And it was right between kindergarten and first grade. So I hadn't even learned to read. And then suddenly they stuck me in a foreign country and I was supposed to learn how to read in French. So that was really disruptive. And suddenly I had to learn a foreign language and I was going to a French school. So I was really messed up. So I mean, I believe that in many ways it worked out fine because I did learn a foreign language, but suddenly I was reading like in 2 languages. So that was very, it was very, I'm not gonna say traumatic, but it was hard. And
It was hard.
when I came back to the United States, I was, kind of bilingual speaking, but not reading. And so that was difficult. And I had a hard time adjusting to the American school system and learning to read because I was,
How old
I
were
had
you
2
when you came
languages.
back?
So I was 8. Yeah. So I came back to 2nd grade and I just had no idea what was going on. I could not read. I didn't like it. It was hard. I would see words and I would think that, half was English and half was French. I thought that I thought words were feminine or masculine because they are in French. And so table was table, la table. I mean, it was so messed up. It's not even worth talking about. I did have to go to like speech and hearing and stuff. And so it was just tough. And kids would make fun of me because I had to like leave the room to go to speech and hearing. You don't want to know my trauma.
Well, I do
I'd
because,
rather hear about yours.
well, so, and the really popular kids probably wouldn't play with you because they thought you were dumb.
I mean, it wasn't that bad, but yeah, they're, I mean, I don't know why my parents thought it would be so easy. I mean, but ultimately, I do think there's so many bilingual kids in the world. And, and I understand too, especially when we talk about immigrants and how the little kids learn to speak English so quickly compared to their parents. And I understand because I learned to speak French very quickly. And so I would translate for my parents when we were in the grocery store, when they wouldn't understand things, because I learned to speak French very quickly and how embarrassing my parents were because they couldn't, and here are these adults and they couldn't learn this language. And I just remember being mortified about, we've really gone off on a tangent here. I'm so sorry.
No, it's not a tangent. I think I am just so fascinated by by the whole reading process and falling in love with books.
Yeah.
My story is not nearly as glamorous. I was just transferred from a kindergarten that had no reading readiness program
Right. Yeah.
into another town. And I only arrived a month or so after the other kids, but they were reading and they were by tables with the smartest kids at table 1, 2, 3, 4. And because I couldn't read, I was put at table 4. I couldn't go out for recess. I was drilled, the whole thing on my reading. Yeah. So it was painful for me, but my breakthrough was in 2nd grade. Mrs. Martin would start reading a book at the end of class every day before the bell. And the book she was reading was Boxcar Children at one point.
Yes.
I did not want that bell to ring.
Yeah.
And that was the book. And from then on, it was just, I just became a voracious reader. Yeah. So you have a librarian in your, you have a librarian in your new book, No Offense, and you also have a librarian story in terms of overcoming your reluctance to read, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things that is missing, not to get on a soapbox and preach, is from schools these days, at least in Florida, is that teachers are teaching, they have no time to read to kids because they're teaching to the tests, state testing. And I think that I had a teacher too who read to the class, and it was also Boxcar Children. Those books are great, and get kids, especially kids who are reluctant to read, will go then sneak into the library and get those books because they want to see what's going to happen, because the teacher's reading slowly and they're like, what's going to happen next? But yeah, I had a librarian who took the time, a school librarian took the time to take me into the library, saw that I was having problems, and find the book for me that would get me to want to start reading. And that I've never forgotten that. And that is what got me into reading. And so, yeah, I really wanted to write a book about a librarian. I love librarians. They're amazing. I spent so much time in libraries growing up. And there's also a library here in Key West. There's an amazing story that I was hearing, this rumor of this librarian who's married to a sheriff. And I was like, what? that's so great. How did that happen? Do they solve crimes together? What's going on? But before I found out the true story, I went and wrote my own, where they do solve a crime together, but they butt heads before, of course.
Oh, he's not happy. He is
No.
not happy about her trying to.
No, of course
But-
not, because they
yeah.
have totally different ideas.
Well, he's
Which
by the book. He's a great cop. He's by the book. She's looking at it from, let's say, a more humanistic
Right,
viewpoint.
exactly. So, which I thought was so funny, because reading your new book, Dance Away with Me, you have a baby in your book that's kind of a found, but not really a found
Right.
baby. But in my book, there's a baby that's found. I was like, wow, we are on the
I
same
love it.
wavelength. I feel bad for the editor. Is it Carrie your editor too?
Yeah, no, we have the
Yeah.
same editor.
So poor Carrie had to edit both our books
Babies.
that
Yeah.
feature babies prominently. So they have to deal with this abandoned baby, and she has a lot of thoughts about what should happen with the baby, and he has thoughts, much like in your book, where they're
Yeah.
dealing with this baby. So yeah, I thought I've always also had a fear of finding a baby. I don't know why. It's just, I always like, wow, if I ever woke up and there was like a baby on my doorstep or at my office job, when I used to have an office job, I was always worried because I worked with a lot of undergraduates, and I'm like, oh my God,
Right.
if the
Yeah.
prom mom thing happens and I'm the one who finds it, I will freak out. So, and once again, going back to how I get my emotions out and
Right there.
my fears when I'm writing, that this was a very cathartic book for me.
Well, Molly, the librarian, I mean, she feels like she's got a stake in this because she's the one who finds the baby in the library.
Yeah.
But that's interesting, because I have a fantasy about finding.
Oh my God, no! I
No,
can
I do.
tell. I can tell by reading your book.
I want to, like, if
know.
anybody, I don't want that baby abandoned any place.
No.
Put it on my doorstep. I'll
Yeah.
make sure. Yeah.
No, see, that's the thing. Like, it's, if you find it, that's okay, because you're a responsible person, and I just don't want to have to be the person then who has to like keep it. I don't think I'm that responsible.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, it'll be cool. Like, if I find it, I will call the appropriate
right
person,
thing.
which
Yeah.
is what Molly does in the book, and that's what happens with your character. She's a nurse and a midwife. She's absolutely the most totally responsible person.
Very responsible. Just
But
like
yeah, then I'm afraid I will get too attached to the baby and something bad will happen. Like the real mom will come along, which happens in my book.
yeah.
The librarian does not want to keep the baby. She wants to find the mother.
Oh yeah, no, she
So-
wants to do that. I feel like this is something you may be exploring again at some point. The whole idea of the
I hope not.
baby.
So it kind of, though, has been percolating, because I have a friend who has there's a stray cat that keeps having kittens under his house. And so he's like, come on, you got to take some of these kittens, just take. And I'm like, no, I have enough cats, I can't, these adorable kittens. So I believe that may be part of it, because I feel a lot of guilt for not taking the kittens. But yeah,
Yeah.
my life is fine.
You've got a great sheriff in this book. I think I love the fact he's worries about his cholesterol. Who has done a hero who's worrying about his cholesterol? That is just brilliant.
I mean, it's a thing that's,
It's a
especially
thing.
right now during this COVID time, where some of us may be eating more
Mhm.
junk food than we normally do. Some of us may be edging up there. So yeah, he's a little concerned. He eats at the popular diner on the island, the Mermaid Cafe, and he often orders the bacon. And so he's concerned. And I know but also I did base him a little bit on Sheriff Hopper from Stranger Things, who I noticed also eats a lot of junk food. So I thought, that's realistic.
Before we get to that, I have to talk about the sheriff's relationship, John's relationship with his daughter, Katie, right?
Yeah, he has a teenage daughter.
He's just such a good dad.
Aw.
He's such a good dad. And
you.
Katie's such a great character too.
Thank
She
you.
knows, that girl knows what she wants. But she's a good kid.
does.
She knows what she wants.
Yeah.
And-
I based her a lot on my niece. I have a niece who is very in love with dancing. She's on the dance team at her school, and that's just it. That's all she lives for. And there is a really fun dance team here in Key West. They're called the Conkettes. In the book, they're called the Snapettes.
It's not
And, yeah, so I did maybe steal a tiny bit from the real life Conkettes, and really wanted to put that in the book, because I think it's a really fun I didn't do any of that when I was in high school, so I kind of get to relive
To
and do it
relive
over.
it. Yeah. Now, this is actually the second book. No Offense is the second book in the series. Plus, there's a novella, right?
Yes.
Do I have that right?
Yes.
And they're all set in Island Bridge.
Little Bridge Island. Yes.
Little Bridge Island, which is thinly disguised Key West.
Yeah, it is.
And so this is number 2, right?
Yeah, but you don't have to, they're totally standalone. So you don't
yeah.
have to read, although of course we would love it if you did, but you don't have to read the first one or the little novella to understand No Offense. Because so they're all set in the same place. And some of the characters do appear in each book, but they are totally standalone.
So you really make the community into a character in this book. And as long as you've lived in Key West for quite a while, haven't you?
I have, like more than 15 years at this point. Yeah.
Because writers tend to hide away and not have a lot of social contact, do you feel like you're really a part of the community? Do you feel like you're on the fringe? Where do you feel like you fit?
I feel like I'm part of the community at this point. I may not be anymore because I keep writing about people that and they're showing up in my books. Mostly they seem to be happy about it. I'm trying to, disguise. They're all kind of just an amalgam of different people, but I certainly don't know the sheriff. Actually, I changed a lot. We actually have a police force in Key West, and there's kind of a county sheriff, but he doesn't play as huge a part as the sheriff in No Offense does. So we have more of a police force. And I did go and interview the librarian when I was done with the book, so I could see like exactly what had happened, because I was so curious how she met the sheriff. And of course I got everything wrong. It's a sheriff's deputy, it turns out, and they never solved a crime together. And they met because he was coming to the library just to check up on things. And, they got to talking and then went to lunch a few times. And she's like, no, he doesn't tell me anything about the crimes and calls that he goes out on. But she's, totally cool with being a part of the book.
It was a good idea that you interviewed her after you wrote the book.
Yeah, I felt that way. Yeah, you should find out stuff afterwards and then go in and tweak things.
But in real life, you have quite a fascination for true crime and all that grisly stuff, don't you?
I do. Do you? Are you into it?
Oh my gosh, no, I am the world's biggest weenie. But I think it's so funny because you have this fascination for all this true crime stuff, but your books don't go dark.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that, I have tried really hard to write, serial killer mysteries, and, the Size 12 is Not Fat kind of Heather Wells series, which are all mysteries. I tried really hard to make them dark, and I can't do it. I don't know why. I watch all the Forensic Files and all the dark, scary, true crime, documentaries. And for some reason I can't, I just can't, I don't know. I have like too much of a sunny personality, I guess. I can't do it.
Thing.
I know. I listen to all the podcasts and I'm like, oh, that's a great way to, get away with killing someone. I'm totally going to write about that. And then every time I try to do it, it turns into a romantic comedy. So I'm failed as a mystery writer, but I guess it turned out okay.
Yeah. Your career's doing fine. I don't know how many. Have you even counted how many #1 New York Times bestsellers?
No, stop. But I have written a lot of books, and I have written. I actually did. I think maybe a year or two ago, I tried to write something very dark, and it was kind of a YA. It was a post-apocalyptic novel, and I sent it out, and everyone rejected it. They were like, it's not Meg Cabot enough. And I was so mad. I was like, but I am Meg Cabot. How can they say that? And I just decided maybe I'll send it out under another name, and then who knows?
I think that it's so interesting because your name is a blessing. Your name is a curse.
Yeah.
That is your brand. Meg Cabot has a brand to it.
But you're the same way. Everyone, if Susan Elizabeth Phillips wrote something super dark, which I'm not saying that you would, this Dance Away With Me is a little dark. It's darker than your normal stuff.
It's not.
But it's still very hopeful.
Yeah.
Happy.
And it's always going to have a happy ending.
Yeah, because
I would never leave that behind.
That's what we need right now, though. And I think that was an important lesson for me to learn, was that, especially considering the times we're living in right now, people need, and I know I do, I need a happy ending. I need there to be justice too, because No Offense is a little bit of a mystery.
Yes,
as
it is.
well. And so the bad guy, not to give anything away, but the bad guy does get caught. And, there's a happy ending because we just don't get to see that enough in real life.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm certainly not going to give a spoiler, but I think you created a really interesting bad guy too.
Yeah, he is based on a real person, by the way.
Really?
The crime in the book is actually really happened here in Key West.
Okay.
And the sheriff was quoted as saying that this was the most frustrating person he had ever had to deal with.
Isn't that something?
Because he was like a wealthy person
Yeah.
who, would just get his fancy lawyers to get him off every single time.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
What is instead of, well, my original question, which I'm not going to ask you because I thought it was too mean, but I was going to ask what it's like to be Meg Cabot. But I thought, what I wanted instead is to know, and I'm really interested in this, and I know everybody here would be too. And by the way, we can't see your questions. If you're posting questions, we can't see them because I have to go over to Zoom to do this. I can't stay on Facebook. But post anything you have, and we'll catch up with it sooner or later.
We can go back afterwards and answer them.
But so what I want to ask instead is, what is a day in your life like? That is interesting to me.
Well, I'll tell if you'll tell what a day in your life is like.
I will, but I'm guessing
interested.
right off yours is going to be more interesting. Go ahead.
I think that they're probably going to be the same because I think we both probably get up and stagger down the stairs to get caffeine. I know that's what I do. And then kind of eat breakfast, watch the news. I have an old cat that I have to give medication to and I have to chase her around to do that. And then I stagger back to bathe. And then it's time to start writing, which I love dearly. But so many things get in the way of writing, which are, all your friends want to chat, especially nowadays, because everybody wants to talk about whatever else is going on in their lives. And I find it very difficult these days. So I really have to try writing without any access to the internet or the cell phone, which is very hard. So what I have been doing is I have been going outside to write on a little word processor that has no access to the internet. And when I say outside, I mean, like I go out to my pool, which I'm very fortunate and lucky to have a pool, but I live in Florida. So lots of people have pools here, and I just float. I have a little raft and I float on it out to the middle of the pool. And I just write on this little waterproof word processor. And that's how I spend my day. And then, people come out and they yell at me. They're like, hey, are you ever going to come in? Lunch is ready. You need to make it, whatever. And I try to do that for most of the day. And then I'll come in to eat.
Well, okay.
I don't have like a specific number of pages or anything that I do a day. And then I come in, I download that onto the computer, and then I'll try to edit. And then I eat dinner. And I mean, it's very boring existence.
So, okay, practical question.
Mm-hmm.
Is your pool shaded? Don't you get sunburn?
I wear SPF 100. So I have, but I did get, I don't know if you can see, I got a little burn. I didn't get the SPF right here the other day. So that was a bad mistake. But yes, there's shade on my pool too. And I wear a big floppy hat.
Yeah.
Sometimes I miss a spot. That was unfortunate incident.
I think on your social media, we need a picture of this.
So I actually made a movie of it, for Harper Library. Yes, we did a little film, and so you can see it. I will try and get and post it over. I think it's on my Instagram. I think you can see it.
Okay.
It didn't work out. It did not work out well because it was one of the few times I actually fell into the pool. But yeah, you can see it.
Did the word processor keyboard go in with you?
So yes, fortunately, so you can buy these. They're you can buy them on Amazon used. They're what I think they teach kids how to type like in school. So they only cost about like $16 or $20. But I had an old one that had kind of stopped working because it got all stinky, and so that I knew that was going to happen. So when I fell in, it went under. But here's the thing: they run on AA batteries, so you just dry it out. I know I sound like a lunatic. Let's talk about your day now.
You are a total lunatic. Are you all hearing this? He's writing on a $16 word processor in the middle of our swimming pool. It runs on AA batteries.
It works though. You got to find what works for you. And that's what I love about talking to writers is everybody has a different process and nobody's like necessarily works for the other. Like, I know people who do the outlines and they have all the little sticky notes everywhere. I could never work like
No,
that.
I can't work that
What
way.
is yours? I want to hear your process.
Oh my, I'm just getting so many, because my neighbors have a pool. I don't have a pool here, but my
Oh
neighbors
no,
do,
you need to.
and they let me in anytime I want.
Good.
I am going to try this. I
Yeah,
love
because I mean,
Yeah.
psychologically, I feel like it separates you from all
It
the
does.
craziness that's going on right now, especially right now. And so you don't have that in your head and you can just float. And,
Right.
but I mean, you can do that psychologically anywhere. You don't need to have a pool.
Yeah, it's hard on your computer unless you have the
Yeah,
software. Yeah,
but you can go if you have a cell phone. You know that I know a lot of people who write on their cell phones, and if you have one of those waterproof ones, it works.
that's interesting. No, I write in the summer on my screen porch, but I have to tell you, it's been so hot and humid
Yeah,
lately here. We've
terrible.
had, it's been in the 90s, and I can't work on a screen porch, but if I went in the neighbor's swimming pool, I could.
Yeah, I think it's the best way.
And
But I mean,
I
I don't
can't
want to
do
tell
that.
people that you have to do it that way.
Yeah, no,
But I
no.
do find being outside for some reason helps.
Yeah, I love being outside too. But the thing is, I think for people who are starting to write, you have to understand that time doing research, time talking to your writing friends is
Mhm.
not actually writing time. It might
No,
be
but it is
fun.
important. It's important to the process. And I actually have a girlfriend who's also a writer, Rachel Vale. She's amazing. And we have a thing where we do 5 pages a day when we're close to the deadline. We have to do 5 pages of writing by 5 o'clock, or we have to donate $5 to a certain politician whose name I'm not going to mention, but he's not somebody that we like. And so the thing that really makes you go fast because when 5 o'clock is coming and you haven't done your 5 pages, you're like, oh no, I don't want to give him $5. We better start writing fast.
Oh,
We
that's
really
the
get that.
funniest ever.
Yeah, we call it 5 by 5 or 5. And
Easy
that we've been doing that for years. And there's always a politician that you don't like. So we've been doing it since,
to do. That's
many politicians ago, and it really
Yeah,
does
yeah.
work. So that's good
I
incentive.
write with a timer, and depending on what I'm doing, how many hours I set the timer for. But if I stop to talk to a friend or go to the bathroom or make
Oh.
tea or answer email, I have to stop the timer.
That's good. That's a good way to do it
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
that works for me too.
So wait, how do you have to do a certain amount of time per day?
It depends. Blank screen work is just torture for me.
Yeah.
Once I actually have words on the screen, I'm in my comfort zone. There's nothing I love better than reworking. So if it's blank page, if I work 2 hours on a blank page on on fresh writing, that's about it for me. My brain starts to explode. If I'm doing revisions, I can go 7, 8 hours.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's good.
blank page is not thing. How far ahead do you plan where your next book is?
So I'll have a story percolating in my head for a long time, a year sometimes or more. And it just takes, and I don't, like I said, I try not to write things down because that feels like writing and then the story won't feel fresh anymore. So I keep everything in my head, and it usually is, it can be years. So I have stories now that I have percolating in my head that I probably won't write for a couple years. And sometimes I forget them because I don't write them down, but I try to, sometimes I'll jot a little something down. What about you?
Well, no. I mean, sometimes I have one more and sometimes I don't. It just depends. Have you finished the next book in the series yet?
Sure have not. And that is due pretty soon. It's due in a couple weeks. What about you?
Well, you've been doing all this promotional work right now.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
no, I have finished my next book.
Wow.
Carrie has it. I'm waiting to hear from her in terms of revisions.
Good.
And so I'm just percolating an idea for the one after that.
Oh, good. Yeah. I've been percolating a lot of ideas, maybe instead of doing what I'm supposed to, because this is what I find very hard. This is something maybe we could talk about. We're living in such a different time now. And I keep hearing from people who are like, are you going to write a book about a romance set during COVID? And then that made me start thinking, well, am I? Maybe I should be doing that instead. But we're already contracted, you and I both, I'm sure, for a book that had been contracted way before any of this happened. So I got a little distracted and I started writing another thing about, oh, this would be really fun and romantic. So I don't know what to do now because I have like half another book written.
I am very nervous. So I'm writing all of my books in a world that doesn't have COVID right now.
Of course, yeah.
Because I feel like I have to know when vaccines are going to become available,
Right.
when life starts changing,
Yeah.
before I can kind of figure that out in terms of incorporating COVID into any of the books. I mean, it's something that we'll have to deal with in the future in anything we write contemporary, right?
And I think that since we live and write for hopefulness, that is what we do. We're in the hopefulness business. We want to show people that, yeah, there is going to be life after this. And we are going to have a world where you can go to the movies and you can hold hands with a stranger and kiss a stranger and shake hands again. And the book that I actually had pitched to Carrie, which I'm writing right now, is set during a book festival. So we won't be doing Zooms in my future. We'll be all at a book festival, meeting one another and having fun. And so I'm hoping that will be our future. So
I do too. Well, that sounds to me like a great way to wind up here. I just want to tell everybody Meg's new book is No Offense. It's a perfect COVID read. There's nothing despite whatever's going on in her brain, there's nothing terribly grisly that happens. Delightful characters, and also just a great summer book to curl up. I read it on my screen porch, of course.
Aww.
I loved having you here, Meg. Thank you so much.
Well, I loved your book, which I am reading now, Dance Away with Me. Has everything that you could want. I think that we both just did a really good job with our assignments this year.
I think we did too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. This was great.
Meg. Bye-bye.
Bye,
everybody.